Hey listeners, welcome to Berlin 26.2 podcast, where I bring you the stories of runners from across the world about their running journeys and also who ran the 2023 Berlin Marathon. I'm very happy to bring you the next story on this podcast of Trevor Lewis from Cheshire, UK, where he shares his running journey. How did he get into long distance running? He's a good storyteller with a great sense of humor. You'll definitely enjoy the part where he says, he even told his wife to slap him on his face if he signed up for another race. That was after he ran his first marathon. And we know how this story goes. Till date, he ran 100 plus half marathons, half a dozen marathons, and pursuing world majors. 2023 Berlin Marathon was his third world major, and he's shooting for a Boston qualifying race next year. He has a unique perspective on how improving 5K pace or 5K PR has helped him actually to improve his overall marathon PR. And you love that part, that way he built up his training plan to pursue that. He also shares about his support system, the support from his family, and also being part of a running club has made a significant impact on his running goals. I'm sure you'll enjoy the story. I'm your host, Kamal Dada. Thanks for listening. Welcome, Trevor, to this podcast. I'm excited to have you here. Welcome.
Hi. Nice to see you. Yes.
Great. Let's start with a quick background of yours. You want to share?
My name is Trevor Lewis. I live in the north of England in Cheshire, which is about 30 miles west of Manchester. I'm a physiotherapist. I'm 55 years old, and I've had a very long journey with running.
Oh, great.
So,
Yeah, we're going to unpack all about it. And you just wrapped up Berlin Marathon, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
How was the experience? Any key highlights you want to share?
Yeah, it was amazing, really. I felt that the organization in Berlin was amazing. I ran Chicago Marathon around this time last year, and I would say they were both similar because when you're a runner flying in from another country, it's another level of sort of worry and concern, a bit of paranoia. Is your flight going to be on time? Is the transport going to be okay? Is the hotel going to be okay? But Berlin was fantastic. The thing that really impressed me is the fact that they just said for the whole weekend, all runners have free travel on the public transport.
Yes.
It's not a criticism, but when I ran Chicago Marathon last year, that system wasn't in place. And my hotel was a little bit out from the center of Chicago. And we had a fantastic time. I took my wife and my daughter and we made a holiday out of it, but I spent a lot of money on Ubers.
I see.
So to have that free transport was fantastic. I found the actual people in Berlin, once you got talking to them and they asked why you were in the city, and when they found out you were running the marathon, they were very supportive and positive. And then on the day itself, the organization, the way in which the course was mapped out, it was almost as if it made a postcard of the city, all the fantastic sights that you could see, things like the Bundestag, and, running through the Brandenburg Gate at the end. I mean, I've done a few marathons and that has to be the most inspirational. It was just incredible. And once you see it, you turn a corner and it's sort of in the distance and you're nearly there. And I can't think of many better ways to end a race. It was just fabulous.
Yes, absolutely. That feeling is so serene. That's true.
Yeah.
So you did Chicago and you did Berlin. Are you chasing world majors, I would guess?
I am, yes. So I ran London quite some time ago. So that was in 2004 when I was still fairly new to running.
Hmm.
And my time was quite slow. And I didn't even consider the world majors. In fact, it took me 4 hours and 50 minutes to run.
Okay.
And I actually said to my wife afterwards, I said, it's a great achievement. I'm really happy. But if I ever talk about doing a marathon again, just give me a slap around the face or something like that. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to do that again. And then it was, let me see, that was 2004. And then my next marathon was 2019. So what's that? 15 years
Wow. And
in between. Yeah.
2004 was your first marathon as well,
That
learning
was my
London?
first one, yeah. And the worst thing is, Kamal, is for years I'd watched the London Marathon on television because it's a big thing. It's on a Sunday morning, and it always seemed to be bathed in sunshine, and it was so bright and shiny and inspirational. And the year I did it, it just rained all the way through, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
cold, and it was dark, and it was grey, and I can't say I enjoyed it. It was good fun. You know, the Londoners are brilliant. They sort of really cheer you along and what have you. But I was glad when it was over. Um, so yeah, my next marathon was 2019. That was in Chester. And then I ran a much better time. And I thought, well, let's see if I can get to the stage where I could maybe qualify for some of the majors. So I managed to qualify for Chicago. And then I got in on the ballot for Berlin. And I'm hoping that my time in Berlin would get me into Boston via the qualification time
Oh,
pathway.
that's awesome. So you would
Yeah.
probably shoot for 2025, I'd guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only problem is I ran 3:31 and a half,
Hmm.
uh, and the qualification time for my age is 3:35. So I've got 3.5 minutes of buffer. But apparently this year you needed 5.5 minutes of buffer. I think it was 5 minutes 29 seconds. So I'm hoping it's a bit kinder next year, but I'll just keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, wish you all the best. I know a lot of folks were disappointed this year, like they're on the
Yes.
cutoff, though they
Yeah.
thought they qualified, still
Yeah. Yeah.
it wrapped up a little early, as you mentioned, around 5.5. So hopefully it's
Yeah.
all, wish you
Yeah.
all the best. You never know how it plays out next year.
No, no, no.
Drawings.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So I think you went back a little bit, and I want to also go back to your journey a little bit.
Yes.
2004, that's
Yes.
almost 20 years ago, you did your first marathon.
Yes.
So how did you get to marathon? Like, were you active and athlete, or like, hey, I love long distance running. I started to run one day. Or how did it all happen for you doing long distance running?
So if you were talking to 16-year-old Trevor,
Uh-huh.
I would say I hate distance
Okay.
running. Because at school I was 100 meters, 200 meters runner.
Okay.
So anything over 200 meters I classed as distance running, and I didn't enjoy it, and I wasn't particularly good at it. And we used to do cross country at school, and it always seemed to be in the winter when it was cold and wet and rainy, and I just didn't enjoy it at all. But then as I went through university and into my 20s, I started to do lots of quite diverse sports. So I played volleyball
Hmm.
for my university, and I played badminton for my university, and I played five-a-side, and I played squash, and I played badminton. And these are all sports where a bit of endurance is useful.
Uh-huh.
And I realized whilst I had sort of power, I didn't have much endurance. So I just used to go on 5K runs to try and build my endurance. And
Hmm.
then in 1997, at work, there was a team 5K event. It was called the Corporate Cup, which was run in Liverpool, and it was a team of 4 people. And I
Hmm.
ran that, and I think it took me about 30 minutes. And I remember coming home and just going straight to bed. I just felt.
Yeah.
And then I started to do more 5K races. And then a friend said, well, look, if you get to 10K, that's actually really good endurance running. So I did a few 10K races. And then in 2000, I decided to run Liverpool half marathon. So that would have been my first half marathon.
Hmm.
And I trained fairly hard for it. and it was in early September, and the weather was baking hot on the day. And it was my first half marathon, and I was really inexperienced, and I just ran the first 10K far too fast. I did some ridiculous time. I think I ran the first 10K in about 42 minutes. And
Okay.
then I really paid for it in the second half, and I didn't finish the race. I ended up in the first aid tent with my wife stood over me saying, "Don't ever do." And I said, "Of course not. I'll never do that again. I won't put you through that." Well, of course, I ran it again the next year.
Uh-huh.
And I ran 1:55, and I said to my wife, "Okay, I know I've done it now. I'm not bothered about doing another." Well, since then, I've run about 100 half marathons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
uh, and then, yeah, 2004, I decided to do the full marathon and did not fall in love with that at all. And then I would say two things changed quite significantly for me. So in 2015,
Hmm.
I started to look quite closely at my diet. So I was in my late 40s. I was starting to put weight on. I was starting to get runner's injuries like Achilles problems and knee problems and what have you. So I thought if I lose some weight, surely that's got to be better for my joints. So I did the 5-2 diet, the fasting diet.
Yep.
Yep. And I lost a stone. And then all of a sudden, my 5K PB went from 23 minutes to 21 minutes.
Oh, wow.
My 10K went from 48 minutes to 43. And my half marathon went from, I think it was 150 to 142.
I see.
So I was really pleased with the improvement. And then in 2018, I joined a running club for the first time, a local club called Helsby.
Hmm.
And that sort of took me onto another level because it was very structured sort of speed sessions. And then you were being introduced to lots of local races. So I was running a lot more. And that was, as I say, 2018. And then in 2019, for the first half of the year, I was just getting more and more personal bests at all distances. And then a little voice said to me, "Well, try another marathon and see how you get on."
Okay.
So I took my marathon time from 2004, which was, as I say, 4 hours 50, and I
Uh-huh.
took that down to 3 hours 31.
Wow.
Uh, so I was
That's pretty
really,
impressive.
really pleased with that. And I thought,
Mhm.
well, actually, you're not that bad of a marathon runner, really, are you? If you lose a bit of weight and you train hard. And then since then, I've probably run about half a dozen, and two of which have been the majors in Chicago and Berlin.
Oh, that's great. You said
Yeah.
100 plus halves and
Yes.
half a dozen since 2019.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. And then the amount of time you cut off from your first run,
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel awesome about yourself as well.
Oh, and it was brilliant because I was 51 years old at the time. So
Wow.
it's often an age where, people are considering, shortening their distances or maybe even giving up running.
Mhm.
But as I say, it wasn't a magical formula. The weight loss was a, a big change for me, and also just the stimulation and the input from joining a running club and being more structured and disciplined as a runner.
Great, great. So you
Yeah.
already alluded a couple of facts what you get out of the running since you're spending a good amount of time in races and training for
Yes.
races.
Yeah.
How would you say it has impacted you overall, like aspects of your life?
Yeah. I would say that the confidence that you get from achieving your goals in running, I think that sort of permeates other areas of your life.
Hmm.
So, sometimes you might have challenges at work or challenging personal circumstances. And I don't know, it's not an active thought process that, oh, I've run a marathon, so nothing's going to beat me. But I just think it makes you tougher. It makes
Hmm.
you more resilient. And it just gives you the ability to go that extra mile, I think. It's also really good for my mental health as well. Work can be stressful, and we all have the same life pressures of looking after family and elderly parents and things like that. And I do find that sometimes I'll go for a run. I might be out for an hour or two. I'm not actively thinking about the problems or challenges in my life. But then
Hmm.
when I come back, it's almost like the computer has been working in the background.
Yep.
And I come back and I think, okay, that's what I'm going to do about this, and that's what I'm going to do about that, and that's what I'm going to do about the other. And it's almost as if the brain has been solving the problems whilst you've not necessarily been actively thinking about them.
That's
So
that's awesome. Yeah, and exactly how it works and wonders. You don't realize, like, okay, you had, like, for me, I think I was sharing with someone. I love lunchtime runs. Like right now, I did a 6 miler. So yeah,
mhm,
you start your day. Things
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
Things pops up, and then midday, take a break, go for a run.
mhm,
You have a brand new start, like in the
yeah,
second part of the day. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think if you're not a runner, you would think, I can't do that because I'll be really tired in the afternoon. But it doesn't
right.
work like that. It
Yeah.
invigorates you, doesn't it?
Yes,
It kind of
absolutely.
gives you a lift. So yeah, it is a wonderful thing to get into your life if you're capable of doing it.
Great. No, that's thanks for sharing. I think this is the amazing, a beautiful way of looking at like how it has impact at you and what you get out of running as well. So
Yes.
you're definitely chasing world majors, and best of
Yes.
luck for Boston. So what's
Thank you.
next for Trevor? That's running
Uh,
goals.
so I don't know whether it's realistic or not,
Uh-huh.
but just prior to the pandemic, my 5K times were getting lower and lower, and I actually managed to get a PB of 20 minutes 29 seconds. And my goal for sort of the second half of 2020 was to go under 20 minutes, which I felt was realistic.
Hmm.
And then, of course, the pandemic came along, and then all the races were cancelled, and the ability to train with the club wasn't there anymore. And excuse me, I became a bit more sedentary. And if I'm honest, I lost my focus a little bit because life was quite challenging. And then I've not really got that close again. I think the closest I've got post pandemic is 21 minutes, 15 seconds.
I see.
So, so next year, the challenge is to try and go under 20 minutes for a 5K. It won't destroy me if I don't do it,
Right.
but I'm going to give it my best shot.
I'm just curious why you're focusing on 5K time improvement. How does
Yeah,
it play out overall other aspects of running goals you have?
it's just a target. It's
Okay,
yeah, a target that I had prior to the pandemic, because what I found
I
was
see.
I wasn't specifically looking for faster 5K times, but all of my 5K personal bests have come whilst I've been training for a marathon.
Yeah.
It was almost sort of like a bonus that I didn't expect.
Uh-huh.
And I do know a coach who says that, look, if you ran 2029 a few years ago, you've definitely got the capability of running sub 20. It's just doing the weights and the speed work and the track work in order to do that. So I won't run an autumn marathon next year because I've run an autumn marathon for the last 3 years. So I've got Manchester Marathon in April,
Okay.
and I'll try and go a little bit faster to give me a bit more buffer for Boston. So I'll hope for that.
Oh, great.
And then once I've done that, then I'm going to spend the summer working on my 5K. And then if I'm successful for Boston, then I can spend the winter of 2024 and the spring of 2025 getting ready for that. So that will be the plan.
Great. That sounds
Yeah.
like a year mapped out you already for you, or
Yes.
more
Yeah.
than a year mapped out with those,
Yeah. Yeah.
goals and the races that you want to focus on. Great.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm really hoping you get to Boston with the time or with the marathon coming up.
Yeah.
If it looks like
Yeah.
you're shooting to beat your own record of 3:31 there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think, if everything goes well and I train really hard, I'd like to think I could maybe get 320, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
That's awesome. That's almost
Yeah.
11 minutes of your PB
Yeah.
that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. So
Yeah.
you said a couple of things about your that you ran first time in 2004. You asked your wife, "Hey, slap me if I had to sign up for one." similar thing happened in the next one, but you after that you continued to run 100 plus
Yeah,
halves and a dozen plus up to 2019. So
yeah,
I'm sure there is a support system you build over the years around you, which
yes.
allows you to achieve these goals and these aggressive goals you have, because you're not like getting younger, like age
No,
is
no.
coming in, but your
Yeah,
goals are getting more focused, more
yeah,
targeted. You know, you're trying to beat your own best in every,
yes.
looks like in every race or every category of race you're chasing for. How
Hmm.
does your support system looks like to help you achieve those?
Well, the running club is great.
Mhm.
As I say, it's Helsby Running Club, so it's a few miles up the road. We have about 150 members, and it's a really sort of close knit and very friendly club. So the training nights are very inclusive. There's an element of sort of competition, but it doesn't sort of get to the point where people are falling out or there's no jealousy. Everybody's really happy when other people do well. So that's a great network. But I have to say, probably the greatest thing is my family, my wife and my daughter. Um, I run to make them hopefully feel proud of me. And
Mhm.
it's quite funny. My daughter is 18 years old, and she'll say some really funny things. Sometimes I'll come in on a winter's day from a long run and I'm absolutely soaking and I look terrible. And she'll say, Dad, why didn't you just have a nice little lie in bed? And I'll say, well, that doesn't get you a PB. But she'll say, well, it's not as if you're not fit, you can have the occasional day off. So we do have a laugh about that. But when I was training for Chicago Marathon through the summer of 2022,
Mhm.
she took an interest, and she used to ask the occasional question, but she wasn't sort of heavily involved in it. And she was 16, 17 years old with her own things going on. But then she and my wife managed to find a vantage point on the day when I was running, and I think it must have been about 3 or 4 miles in. And we've got a friend that lives in Chicago, and he was with them. And then my wife noticed me in the crowd. She said, "There he is. There's Trevor." And Steve said, "Oh yes, there he is." My wife said that my daughter was silent, and she turned around and she said there were tears streaming down her face.
Oh.
And she said, I didn't think I'd see him. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of him. And she's never said it to me directly, and she doesn't have to, but that's what inspires me. I just want my family to be proud of me and to take pride in what I do. And I also want my daughter to see that even in your 50s, you can still have dreams and you can still
Mhm.
have goals. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as they're realistic. And, they're not going to be goals that are going to sort of push you too far, or, sort of potentially sort of, you know, set yourself up for disappointment because they're not realistic.
Yeah, I mean, you're setting goals, you're achieving them, you're challenging yourself. So, and you're, if your family is proud of you, what else you need? And that's the best, thing
Yeah,
out you get out of for sure. No,
absolutely.
thanks
Yeah.
for sharing. And this is definitely, I'm sure it's a proud moment as a dad as well. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
I have a 10-year-old. I'm hoping he'll pick up running too. So
Yeah.
I'm in the similar path that, hey, it's okay. You don't want to run. It's okay. But hey,
Yeah.
that, you can
Yeah.
compete against yourself and you can achieve anything. Doesn't matter. Age is
Yeah.
a number for you.
And I so agree with you, Kamal. And my daughter is not a runner at all. We've been out for a few runs together, but she doesn't necessarily enjoy it. But I just think for all her life, she's seen me get up in sunshine, in rain, in snow, in ice,
Yeah.
and get up and run.
Yeah.
And she knows the positive effect it has on me and the positive effects of mental health. And I'd like to think that maybe at some stage in the future, if she's going through a tough time or she just needs a bit of a boost, maybe one day she'll just pull on a pair of trainers and think, well, let's give it a try and let's see if it works for me. And
Mhm.
if it does, then the way I see it, my job is done.
Yep. Absolutely. Very
Yeah.
nicely put, Trevor.
Yeah.
One thing I'm curious, you said being part of a running club made a huge difference to achieve your running goals.
Yes.
Let's unpack that a little bit because you've been running yourself, you know, quite
Yeah.
long time. And then at
Yes.
some point of time, you said like, let's join the running club. I'm
Yes.
just curious, like, how do you see the difference played out? Trevor by himself training for a run versus with the running club.
Yeah, I think there are several levels to that. So I've always been a believer in interval training.
Okay.
So I can remember, 20, 25 years ago telling people, well, I interval train. And what does that mean? Before it was even really popular. But I always used to do the same interval session.
I see.
And I call it the banister because apparently it's what Roger Bannister used to help break the world mile record. So it would be a 10-minute warm up, 1 minute jogging, 1 minute sprinting, and repeat that 10 times. And I would do that a couple of times a week. But then I joined the running club, and oh my goodness, some of the interval sessions, it would be 2 lots of 5 minutes, then 2 lots of 4 minutes, then 2 lots of 3 minutes, then 2 lots of 2 minutes, 2 lots of 1 minute. And there was a lot more variety, and also hill training and training on a track. So there was lots of things that, even though I was an experienced runner, it exposed me to different things. And that competitive element of being around other people and not wanting to be last or giving a good account of yourself, I found I was pushing myself a lot harder than if I was training on my own. I think if you're just running down, sort of like a country lane on a summer's day and you're interval training and it gets a little bit hard, no one else is watching. It doesn't matter if you stop maybe 10 seconds early. But
That's
when
true.
you're part, when you're part of a group, it's a little bit different because everybody will know. So that was one element. And then the other element is just exposure to lots more races. So over the winter, there's a league called the Borders League where running clubs in Cheshire and Wales run against each other.
Okay.
And basically, the faster you finish, the more points you get for the team. So you're not just running for yourself, you're running as a group, as a team sport. And then there's incentives within that because there are sort of prizes for age groups. So we have a prize giving at the end of the year. So even though I'm in my 50s and some of the guys are in their 20s, I could still maybe pick up a trophy for my 55 to 60 age group if I do really well. And then I think the other thing is just the fact that you've got people looking in on you. So if you run on your own all the time and you're injured, no one else really knows. But then if you don't turn up for training for a few weeks, people are texting and saying, is everything all right? Is everything okay? And you say, oh, well, I've got a bit of a hamstring tear or a calf tear. It's like, okay, well, look, if you want to just run 10 or 11 minute miles, I'll come out with you on Saturday morning. So you've got that sort of fellowship, that support network that will help to drag you along, even sometimes when your own motivation levels may be a little bit low.
No, that's very nicely put. Yeah. And intrinsically, you're building that accountability, right? With yourself along.
Yeah.
That running with a group builds that also to that group, that hey, I'm accountable to you as well as I'm accountable to myself, to my goals.
Absolutely.
Which is very nice. I really enjoyed talking to you, Trevor. I wish you all the best for Boston that's coming up.
Yeah.
And then
thank you.
Probably world measures are not that far away from you.
No.
You're already done too, so they're not that far away from you. All the best. Just lovely chatting with you.
And fantastic talking to you as well. Thank you so much.